Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the topic of how to manage agent demand at scale with Copilot Studio and Azure Foundry. We're running these webinars in a series, so you might have already joined two previous webinars, which were intros to Copilot Studio and also Copilot Studio Governance. If you haven't watched them, I definitely encourage you to go and watch the recordings, but today we're going to dive into managing demand at scale. So I am Nastya Sanko, and I am Power Platform and Copilot Studio at Power Platform and Copilot Studio Principal at WM Reply. And today I'm accompanied by two of my wonderful colleagues. So,
Hi everyone, my name is Anton. I'm a partner at WM, and I'm looking after the technology and innovation side of the business. That's me. David?
And also David.
Hi guys, I'm David. I lead AIM Reply. We're a boutique AI consulting and services firm. On the Microsoft side, we focus on everything, which is Foundry, Azure OpenAI, and ProCode.
Cool. So before we dive into the nitty-gritty of today's topic, let's just quickly look at the agenda for today. So firstly, we're gonna do just a quick recap on AI and automation journey. We already touched on that topic during the previous webinar, so we're just gonna do a quick recap of the maturity journey and the key pillars it consists of, but then also do a little bit of a deep dive into the factory model, because that's what we're mostly going to be talking about today. And then after that, we were trying to, so we're delivering loads of webinars, and we were trying to think of how to make this one a little bit different, also a bit more practical and interesting for you. So basically, we've made up a company which is called Avernest Provisions. I'm going to do an organizational profile intro a little bit later to what the company is actually doing. And on the example of Avernest Provisions, we're going to walk you through the typical AI maturity journey. Obviously, the company is made up, but the challenges it's facing and the key milestones are very applicable to all the organizations that we're working with, and also the key learnings that we're going to be sharing with you today. They are collective learnings from the customers we've worked with in the past year or more. So yeah, after the AI and automation journey summary, we're going to do a quick intro to Avernest Provisions, what they do. Then we're gonna walk you through the typical steps of onboarding Reply, and also doing some discovery activities to understand the current AI landscape of Avernest Provisions. And then we're going to dive into the demand funnel, how Avernest Provisions collecting, gathering their agentic use cases, what are they doing with them, and how are they moving them to production. And again, AI and automation adoption, it's a maturity journey. So at the end, we want you on the example of Avernest Provisions, we want to show you some of the aspirations or more of a long-term goals of what you probably should have in your backlog for the next 6 to 12 months. So we're going to do it on the example of Avernest Provisions, and we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Ant to walk us through AI and automation journey.
Sure. Thank you, Nastya. Exactly. Before we go into the factory itself, let's take a step back and take a look at the complete journey for the AI and automation. And we know that all the organizations, including Avernest, which we'll talk about a little bit later, they are coming to consultancies like us in different stages of their maturity. But we always starting conversations with them by looking into the AI strategy. So whether we looking into the entire organization strategy or just the department AI strategy, whether it's already shaped, whether it's non-existent, and some companies actually not planning to put this on paper because they're wondering, why do I have to document something which is so fluid and agile, because it will change in half a year time, is actually a strategy. But in any way, we're helping to understand how could it look like, and what's more important, how Microsoft AI and automation tools can play their role within the overall department or organization AI strategy and how can they play together with AI vision. And as always, next step, we're moving into the solid foundations. And solid foundations is the setup for the platform and the governance. And what we've seen during the last year is that because Copilot Studio is built on Power Platform, pretty much all the principles that are applicable for the Power Platform governance and setup, they're applicable for Copilot Studio and for the agentic AI within the world of M365. So we're looking into the governance for the Power Platform, Copilot Studio specific things, because we're talking about AI, we're talking about the principles on how do you test AI, how do you make sure that the output is continuous at a high quality, but also thinking about the ethics, the responsible AI, and looking into the further beyond M365 into the Azure governance as well. And then third part of the journey, which is actually not just third part, the adoption enablement. From our experience, it should be considered from day zero and then going further into the deployment and past deployment. So this is training, this is reinforcement, following the ATCAR methodology, and also speaking with end users within the organization and identifying those not just high value use cases, but also the critical business processes and existing pain points and ideas how those steps which had causing the pain, they could be automated or made more intelligent. And then also the very natural build up on this is actually enabling the self-build capability, something that we've called citizen developers or the champion network earlier. And this is not just to make sure that some of the use cases could be covered within the organization without the need of the external consultancy, but also with agentic AI, it's very important that in a couple of years, if you look into the future, people will be very confident and comfortable working with the digital colleagues. So this is the concept that we hear more and more from all corners of the industry today. And to be comfortable with the agents, the best thing we think is people can do is build their own agents. Something that you can build easily, quickly, within a couple of minutes. Could be a disposable agent, could be something that you use just for a day or like a week or a project, or could be something for the team. Building agents, understanding the principles, gaining this AI literacy will give people more confidence when they will work side by side with agents in the future. In some cases, as we will see further today, some agents and automations, they will be quite complex and they will require professional development involvement. And this is not just the complexity of the use cases. This is also the governance and the risk aspect. What kind of data are we working with? How they're working with this data? What kind of steps? Who are the target audience? So some use cases will be in need for the professional support. And all of this, like all together, it can be wrapped up in a factory. And the factory is essentially just a model, an approach of how to move from a set of ideas and the processes and the use cases into the set and ecosystem of working agents which are solving real problems. So that's effectively what we're trying to do. Turn problems and pain points into the agents and automations which solve those problems. So this is the vision, and then we'll be talking more about the AI agentic AI factory today. But in our view, AI and automation, they always go side by side. And again, this is based on what we've seen recently, and this is based on our experience. Just to recap, in terms of the tools that we'll be talking about today, we will not be touching them that much, but just to have them as a background for the conversation. We'll be talking about the M365 Copilot. We'll be talking about the Copilot chat. Also, not on the slide, but implied is Agent Builder within Copilot chat and M365 Copilot, the capability for anyone to build simple agents. Moving slightly further into the complexity world is Copilot Studio, extending M365 Copilot with agents or building standalone agents, which is an option as well. And also looking into the more kind of chat interface versus autonomous agents and thinking about, okay, If it gets in really complex, if we need a custom model, if we need the pretty sophisticated orchestration with your semantic kernel, how can we leverage Azure Foundry and Azure Cloud to build those things? So altogether, how it will wrap up in the factory model and what we're going to talk about today. So this is the view of the factory. Again, what goes into the factory are ideas, data, processes, use cases, pain points. The very end on the right is what comes out, the ecosystem of AI agents and automations we should build to solve these problems. You will see that on the top, we know that there should be someone, a person or a body, COE, Transformation Management Office, someone who owns the factory. We'll talk about the roles and responsibilities later, but typically someone reporting directly to the CTO or CIO, CEO, who is the sponsor. And you will see that the value in the business benefits management, it also should be considered across the entire journey. And David and Nasti will talk more about it as a step almost, but we know it's not a step. We know the value have to be considered from the day one, because everyone is wondering how those automations can actually improve the not just employee well-being, but the financial position of the organization as well. And then the funnel itself, starting from the discovery, how we collect the ideas, how we collect those use cases, go into the architecture step. How do we develop a framework or case-by-case scenario to map process to the technology, engineering and development, which could be different streams of development, and then in the end, change management, comms and enablement. You will see adoption is across the entire journey. From day one, talking with people, planning the comms approach, planning the reinforcement journey. How do we do this? It should be across the entire funnel. And it's underpinned by the very solid foundations. Foundations are data governance, AI, COE, COP, operations, skills development. So a lot of this we've covered in the previous webinars, but we will touch on this today on the example of the company which we're working with. On this, Nastya, handing over to you to talk more about the Evanest.
Thank you. So yeah, before we dive into the Evanest AI journey, let's just talk a little bit on who they are and what they do. So Evanest Provisions is a made-up, fast-moving consumer goods company. They specialize in snacks, ready-to-eat meals and beverages. They are a mid-sized FMCG company with about 18K of employees and about $6.5 billion in revenue. They are globally present, so they're already operating on America, EMEA, APAC regions markets. They are expanding into new markets, mostly by acquisitions. And to support those acquisitions, they need to make sure that the systems and processes they have allow that rapid expansion. And their vision as an overall for the organization is to become the most trusted global brand for smart nutrition, which means that they need to expand not just rapidly, but also still maintain all the quality of the products that they are providing to the customers. So same as any organization on the market, Evanest is facing a couple of challenges. Firstly, loads of operations in Evanest still rely on manual processes, which means that it slows down efficiency of the overall organization and also increases risks of human errors. They have loads of workflows that are very labor heavy, which increases operational cost and therefore obviously decreases profits of Evanest Provisions. Current systems and processes that they are using, they have been developed a while ago, and therefore it's a little bit hard for them to scale them up quickly when they expand to new markets or do a new acquisition. Obviously, when they acquire any business and merge it into the Evanest Provisions network, those acquisitions, those companies already coming with existing platforms and processes, and it's quite challenging trying to integrate those platforms into Avernast landscape. They've noticed that they have certain challenges in forecasting demands, especially for seasonal products, which leads to either stockouts or excessive inventory. You never know what you're going to get. And then they are not agile enough in their supply chain. So when any disruption happens on one of the markets, it's quite difficult for them to deal with it and manage their processes. So hopefully this intro now is going to help you to understand their AI journey a little bit better. And what they have to deal with and what kind of KPIs and value metrics they're going to be looking at. And I'm going to hand over back to Wendt now to walk us through their AI landscape.
Okay, amazing. So with this knowledge of the company, we had a few email exchanges with them, and then we invited them to our lovely offices in Nova, in Victoria. We hosted them in the boardroom, and we had a quite lengthy introduction call meeting. It was not a workshop, it was just a pre-engagement thing for us to understand where they are. And there were quite a few topics that we discussed in this meeting. But first of all, we wanted to understand their aspirations and knowledge challenges and the vision for AI and automation within the organization. Like, what would they like to achieve? Some of this we know from the previous kind of pre-engagement research, but we know that they would like to scale organization into new segments, new markets, sometimes by acquisitions, sometimes by organic growth, but they would like to do this without proportionally scaling the team, right? Because they want to make the business more efficient, they want to make business more profitable, but at the same time, that's a dilemma they wanted to solve, right? How can you increase the efficiency of the team without impacting employee experience and the employee well-being that much? So how can we tackle those really problematic processes, how we can improve them, automate them, make them more intelligent to support the business growth with the same people, making sure that people are happy. We also wanted to understand what is the organization department strategy, and it turned out they had no defined strategy. Like, it was not something written in a paper and cascaded down to all the departments, but they have a very strong AI vision, and the AI vision was that they should not be behind the AI innovation. They should leverage innovation for growth, and they should not be behind the competition when it comes to the AI and profitability and market presence. We also wanted to understand what is their Power Platform state. What we understood briefly on the intro call is that currently the IT owns Power Platform. Sometimes they create business apps for other departments. The members of IT, they have access to the experiment and sandbox environment, but the Power Platform licenses are not assigned in the organization properly. It's just case by case. We wanted to see what is their vendor and cloud approach. Are they multi-vendor? Are they working with one provider? So they actually follow in the multi-cloud strategy. They have Azure, AWS, and some workloads are deployed to Google Cloud as well. But Entra ID is powering the identity management for the entire organization, and quite a lot of the workloads for the white collar jobs, they are deployed in Azure. So presence of Azure is very strong. At the same time, they're working in Teams and M365. So all office workers, they're licensed with E3 license. When it comes to the production lines, the front line, not everyone have a license. The managers are licensed with F3, but majority of people, they just don't have access to the to the data from their device. They don't have BYOD, they don't have provide license. So this is just for management layer and office workers. When it comes to the M365 Copilot and Copilot Chat rollout and enablement, they actually went through this route, which is very similar. They were on the EAP program with 300 licenses assigned, and they've been looking into the assigning extending those licenses based on the most impactful use cases. So they were not doing blank deployments. They were looking specifically into the departments and assigning 1 or 2 or 3 licenses based on who is executing what type of work and then who could benefit from the M365 Copilot license, and who will bring the highest ROI. But as soon as the Copilot chat became available, as soon as being announced by Microsoft, they rolled out it to everyone in the organization because they knew that the shadow IT, the shadow AI is taking place, and they were monitoring what's happening in the network. They know that people are accessing ChatGPT and they're accessing Google Gemini. So they decided to roll out Copilot Chat for everyone to make sure that whatever work people do with AI, how they experiment, it is way more safe. But at the same time, Agent Builder in Copilot Chat was disabled, right? So they were not allowing people to build or use the agents because they were avoiding the agentic Wild West, how they call it. And they also had few processes, few use cases identified when we had this first call with them for AI automation. It was the HR specific use case, and it was the use case for the for the first line IT support. So this is what we gathered from the first introduction call, which is quite good. Gave us some solid understanding of where they are currently, but as a very first step of the proper full engagement, we always doing the discovery to understand, like have an in-depth understanding of the organization, what they're trying to achieve, where they are. And we used the outcomes from this introduction to shape and design the workshops for the discovery stage. And we had quite a few workshops and set of workshops. So first of all, yes, we were talking specifically on the AI vision and the AI strategy. And the main reason why we're talking about this was to understand how to map the objectives and the strategy and the KPI of the organizations, how to map it to the outcomes of those gains that we will get from AI and from automation. We were talking quite a lot about the factory model governance. So not data governance, but the factory governance itself. Who will own the factory? They haven't had any role by the time, but we decided that altogether that we will set up the AI and automation COE. It will be led by head of AI, and this person will report in directly to CTO, and CTO will be the main sponsor of the factory. We also had a workshop to understand how do we manage the whole ideation process, and we agreed on the demand management process. How do we manage the influx of the ideas and the use cases, how we talk with the stakeholders and how we refine those ideas coming in. And we came up with a pretty solid framework, and David will talk to you more in details about how it works in practice. We also were touching on the delivery, on the development side of the factory. So we wanted to understand how do we approach the sizing of the ideas. So the ideas could be complex or not complex, and it could be small and it could be big. So what is small, what is big? We normally talking about the t-shirt sizing, small, medium, large, extra large. But for every organization, in reality, those sizes mean something different. So we want to establish this framework with the organization, with Evanest. And why we're doing this is mostly to understand the velocity of the team, because we know the size of the team. And we wanted to estimate how many ideas or like how many agents or automations we can do in a sprint, or how many sprints it will take us to deliver a large scale idea. We also were establishing the technical fit criteria and the framework to do the technical fit, which ideas can go into the Copilot Studio, which ideas can go into the AI Foundry, what could be done by anyone, citizen devs, or the professional developers. So we established this framework. We'll talk about this later when we go into the technical fit stage of the factory. We also had quite a few technical workshops on the Copilot readiness, Power Platform strategy and setup, and Copilot Studio and Azure Governance. So the first thing that we would like to cover today and share the outcomes is the outcomes from the Power Platform COE governance assessment. So we were looking at where they are today with the Power Platform. And we understood that they currently have one set of the environments, development, activity, and production. So they were managed by the IT department. Default environment in Power Platform, it was open to everyone, but it was very, very rigidly locked with very strict data loss prevention policies. So the IT department, they were able to build a management environment. So they were building those applications for the internal customers. So if HR is coming to them or IT is coming or finance, they say, oh, we would like this automation, or we would like this Canvas app, we would like this Power BI report. So they were doing this. But the business users who actually know the process better than everyone, they only had access to the very basic ups and flows with the standard connectors and no premium features. And they had no clear strategy on the Power Platform licensing. As I said, premium features were restricted, and the licenses that were just assigned case by case, where people were requesting this, going through multiple stages of approval. So the strategy, as it was absent. And many features were locked, as we say, the custom connectors, so premium actions. And yeah, the IT department, they were building solutions, but their bandwidth was so limited because they were growing, right? They had very ambitious targets for the acquisition growth. And obviously, most of the attention was directed towards integration of these new acquisitions into the ecosystem. So that was the main focus. And then the innovation and automation of the process was kind of lagging behind when someone had time or something was really urgent, someone was really heavily knocking the door of the AT. And the Copilot Studio was enabled only for IT again, and there was no formal setup or governance. So this was that was the discovery stage, and based on discovery, what we recommended, what we proposed was two separate streams. The first stream was to set up those foundations. Remember the underlying layer which sits below the factory to make sure it's solid. So that's looking at the environment strategy, DLP policies, and the ambition was to open the low-code, no-code platform to the wider audience. So, and when we're talking about the wider audience, we're not necessarily talking about citizen developers only. It's also professional development, like more professional developments with developers within the organization. So people who historically were developing in C#, JavaScript, and they were very good in Azure integrations and architectures. We would like to open this capability for them to build professional solutions with Power Platform. We were also doing work on the Copilot Studio enablement, moving from IT only, again, rolling this out to the wider business with very strict AI guardrails. And we were defining and implementing this scalable strategy for the licensing, for the premium features and for the connectors. We had a separate webinar on this. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, when we were tackling the approach for the Copilot Studio and Power Platform governance in detail. So I highly recommend you to go and watch it. It's on YouTube, WM Reply channel. And what we're going to talk about today is more agentic MVP stream. So first of all, establish the factory, run the ideation, innovation day. We were going through the backlog requirements, prioritizing those ideas, turning them into actionable MVPs. And then the goal was to deliver into production and roll out properly at least 2 agentic AI MVPs within this program. So yeah, let's take a look into the details how this has been done, and we'll start with the demand funnel. And David, over to you.
Thanks, Anton. Okay, so for the next few minutes, let's immerse ourselves in the whole discovery. And when we say discovery, so it's a combination of innovation day, prioritization of use cases and ideas, and creating a backlog. We believe that holding a strong and robust discovery phase is critical for the success of any agentic AI journey. And we'd like to walk you through and we'd like to share our framework and the ideas that we have around this. The Innovation Day is one of the driving factors towards discovery and towards compiling this list of use cases and ideas, as well as prioritization. So we've given here a real life example of an Innovation Day that we've already conducted. So this is a live example. Typically from a number of participants, so it's between 20 and 30. That's what we recommend. We recommend that we split them into 5 teams of 6, if it's something like 30 people. Each one of these teams will also be paired with someone from Reply. Total duration of the Innovation Day that we recommend is 1 day, and this can be either held within our wonderful facilities, as Anton mentioned, in Nova Victoria in London, or this can also be on client site. We split the Innovation Day into 2 sections. The morning, we start with providing an introduction to what AI and Gen AI is. We give an overview of how the future will look like. So a future into 5 years, for example, how will AI and Gen AI work? Because we also want to ensure that anything that we discover is future-proof. We don't just talk and we don't just kind of show slides. We also go into the art of the possible. So we show live demos to bring everything to life. And then we start and open it up into something typical like design thinking session to identify AI and Gen AI use cases. We continue the Innovation Day with the second half, which is the afternoon session. We go into prioritization of the use cases and of the ideas. That's where we start to split into teams. The prioritization, we have a whole framework that I'm going to run you through in a moment. And after we've completed the initial prioritization, we go into final walkthrough and showing the outcomes. As an optional piece for the Innovation Day, if time permits, one of the next steps beyond the Innovation Day is we call it either hackathon or agentic-thon. And part of the agenda, if time permits, during the Innovation Day is to start and do some early design and start and identify the use cases that will go into this agentic-thon. From an Innovation Day, from an ideation perspective, we encourage our clients and our teams to start with a broad sense of ideation. We want many ideas. We want all of the ideas that you currently have, no matter how far-fetched they are. That's important in order to ensure that we capture everything that's currently on the table. These ideas can come from either from our clients or specific kind of people that are participating in the workshop, in the Innovation Day. They can come from Reply based on our experience. And we also bring an external and outside-in view, best practices and some industry leading firms. We have an example today. So overall, start with a broad set of use cases. And as we go along during the AI journey that Anton also walked us through, these ideas will start to reduce because some of them will not be worth doing from a business value perspective. Others will be unfeasible from a technical standpoint. So the ideas will go and reduce as time goes by. And then from a large funnel of ideas, you go into a more reduced number of use cases and ideas into minimum viable product and into scale. We continue during the innovation day and during the use case ideation and prioritization into something that we call process mapping and ideas gathering. We don't just want to randomly pick ideas and use cases. We also want to attach these use cases into business processes. We also want to start and quantify, if we can, and clarify what will be a success criteria. How will this use case be successful from an implementation standpoint? We also want to start and identify and recognize the stakeholders and the personas that will be included in each of the use cases, because it's not only the use case, it's not just the technical element of it, it's also people are going to be involved. It can be the human in the loop or users of these agents or reviewers of the outcome. So we also want to ensure that we capture each one of these. We have a whole methodology of running these innovation days, running the design thinking, a little bit conscious of time, so won't go into each one of the techniques, but overall, it's a combination of thinking of the problem and the solution. It's thinking about ease of implementation versus business value. It's thinking about a combination of far-fetched type of ideas that may contribute towards revenue generation, towards new lines of business, versus other ideas that are more operational, cost-saving. And there's some additional points around not only thinking about the agent or the use case in a silo, it's also what type of data sources are required, what type of analytics on top will be required, and how to start and think conceptually about the plan to execute it in terms of any sequences, any dependencies that are required. We finalized the ideation day and the discovery in a set of backlog use cases that are identified, they're prioritized. We have a live example here in a few minutes on how to go and prioritize. For now, I'd like to hand this over to Anton that will walk us through, now that the use cases have been identified, how to continue with the technical fit decision.
Thanks, David. And then, yeah, I see Nasta messaged me in chat that we should speed up, so we will speed up slightly. Okay, we have ideas. We have the backlog. How do we understand which idea, which process could be mapped to the specific tag? And just an example of like few ideas which we came up with. We've seen things like Ask Eva, the internal knowledge agent. Probably just intuitively something simple, right? You just point your agent into the set of the curated documents or libraries, and this should be it. But then we're talking about things like, okay, new hire orchestration, and this is the whole process, even as envisioned to start from the pre-boarding, go into the onboarding, and into the first day into the office, tackling the actions from recruitment, HR, IT, facilities operation to make sure that the new starter is propagated in all the systems, that they have the proper laptop issued, they have all the access, everything. And there are quite a few ideas, so we'll not go into them, but how do we assess them in terms of the technology, like where do they belong? And we came up with them with a technical fit framework. We're basically creating a matrix and asking 8 questions for every idea and checking the boxes, and then checking some of the boxes will just immediately top the idea into the pro development category, and then sometimes in other questions, some of the boxes that you need to like cumulative effect. But the questions are like, what is the data primary location, right? Is it sitting in an M365 or like brought with graph connectors? Is it third-party LB system, line of business system? Is it live data? And what's the nature of the data? Is it the public data? Is it the organization data, but generally available for everyone? Is it confidential? Is it sensitive? Does it have the personal information? And how our automation or our agent is going to work with the data? Is it going to just read it, or it's going to modify it on my behalf, or maybe even autonomously? So, and who's going to be using the tool, right? Whether it's going to be used for the personal productivity, it will be used by entire team department, or maybe it's going to be used by the external authenticated external users, such as your suppliers through the vendor management portal, or maybe it will be public, anonymously sitting on the website. And then it's important to understand, because not every idea is an agent, as we've seen from the past, how people are going to interact with the tool. Do they need a chat-based conversational interface? Is it going to be autonomous, or is it going to be traditional application UI with intelligence behind the scenes, which is also very, very good use case when people are just using buttons and boxes, and yeah, something's happening behind the scenes. When talking about with this behind the scenes, like what is actually happening there, what kind of thinking or what kind of large language model is required? Does it just follow a clear set of rules? Is it doing the natural language understanding? Does it have to be a fine-tuned model, or the generic model, the base model deployment? Does it have to be decision making in there, or like predictive statistical analysis? And then when we connect it to systems as tools, if the orchestration is doing this, like where those tools are, M365, standard SaaS services, or the legacy applications with custom APIs, or maybe this is an upgrade of the existing RPA automations, but now with Copilot computer use capabilities, we're looking into them as well. And what will be the topics which people will deal with, especially when we're talking about the conversational UI, whether they will be just the common knowledge topics, or there will be sensitive questions sometimes. Especially we've seen this when we're working with HR department or with finance department, or there may be some regulated set of conversations. So when the specific questions are asked to your internal HR team, it has to follow very specific legal process, which may be by different actually in each country. So answering those questions will actually help us to do the technical fit. And just to see the example of the use cases that were identified during the discovery phase, using those criteria in the framework, this is how we split them. So Ask Eva could be just user build, Copilot Chat Agent Builder, multi-agent new hire orchestration. It's a pro development. We should be building them, but they could do this in Copilot Studio and Power Platform. There is nothing kind of tipping the point where they should have been going to the semantic kernel. So no, this can be completely built in Copilot Studio. But if you're talking about the legal compliance expiration agent, that's probably the same. But then one of the idea was about the autonomous supply chain disruption monitor, where the autonomous agent was sitting behind the scenes and just monitoring signals from different news sources, from government websites, looking at the hotspot areas and predicting the disruptions in the supply chain. So this idea actually needed a proper full stack build with semantic kernel and built in C#. So those are the ideas. So Nasta, let's take a look how the implementation streams were actually designed.
Sure. So yeah, once we have our backlog, we have refined it. The next stage we move into is engineering and development, and it could be the chunkiest stage of your demand funnel because some of the ideas you gather in the backlog can easily take 6, 10, 12 months to develop them. So obviously you can't, even if you have like just 10 ideas in your backlog, if you try to develop all of them with your internal IT team or outsource it to third-party agencies and suppliers, it could easily become first very pricey exercise. Secondly, it can also extend easily to years, if not decades, while IT or professional AI engineers trying to build all those use cases. So that's why in the engineering and development stage, there are two approaches on how you can be developing the ideas. One is with your pro engineering team, but then option number 2 is actually train and coach your non-IT, non-technical, passionate end users to build some of these small use cases themselves. So as you've seen in the previous slide that Anne was sharing, well, when we did t-shirt sizing, we have identified some small, medium-sized ideas. And what we have recommended to Everest is to establish a citizen developer academy where we can gather all of the simpler use cases from the passionate end users, get them excited, show them they are out of the possible of the technology, and then launch 2 streams or 2 branches of the academy, with one focusing on the agentic use cases and agentic tools, and other focusing on the automation. Because as we already mentioned in the beginning, AI and automation, they go hand in hand, and it's quite hard looking at one thing with ignoring the other. So this approach can help to boost your to boost innovation within your organization with that secret workforce of passionate citizen developers who are eager to learn and eager to build something themselves. But the second approach is obviously to involve pro AI engineering team, and I'm going to hand over to David to talk a little bit about this approach.
Nastia, thank you very much. For the purpose of the next section, we have decided that we don't just want to talk about generic type of frameworks and our approach. So we're showing 2 live examples that we have. And start with prioritization framework. So a little bit about the prioritization framework. What we are determining as a prioritization framework is split into 4 key dimensions. The first one is business value, so business benefits. Part of the prioritization can't just live into in the technical or the functional. It must also ensure that it has business benefits associated with that. So that's the first dimension. The second dimension is any mitigation to existing business events or any operational events that need to be addressed. So that is part of the prioritization. Technical feasibility is clear and critical. We don't just want to define just generic type of use cases. Technical feasibility, ease of technical implementation is important. We recommend that this value assessment and prioritization is not only done during the first discovery phase. Our recommendation is that that is then taken forward during all of the phases and all of the life cycle of these use cases, as well as into production, as well as, extremely importantly, post-production, to continue and measure and monitor the business benefits associated with the agents after they've been deployed into production, as well as after the global scale. I'm conscious of time. I'll just continue on, but overall, in terms of the backlog rationalization, we have a bubble map that clearly illustrates the way that we prioritize per agent. So that is part of the approach and methodology. As I mentioned, we don't just want to talk in a generic manner. We've picked two live examples. The reason we picked the first example, so we have a era of agentic AI for the CFO and finance function. Everest as a company has a number of challenges or business opportunities around acquisition, as well as around market growth, so going into new markets. That is having an impact on the finance function being able to scale. So a little bit about this real life example. We had a discussion with a client. The client has raised a number of ideas around agentic AI for finance function. As an example, you see here, one of the ideas was around accounts payable, so AP, in order to automate some of the business processes associated with accounts payable. During these innovation days, during these discussions, we don't just come with client ideas, we also come with a set of reply ideas. So we enriched the discussion with this particular client with a set of ideas that came from the reply bucket, essentially. Pricing agent, I mentioned account payable, there's also account receivable, cash collection, automation, and a bunch of other ideas. We didn't just come with the client ideas and reply ideas. An outside-in view is also super important. So during these innovation days, we also couple the ideas with outside-in examples. So this is from Gartner. Gartner has a set of 22 innovation ideas for finance and CFO. We've combined all of that in. We don't just come in with generic use cases and agents. We also couple that with detailed architecture options that we have. These architecture options aren't just theoretical. They've been verified and validated with Microsoft. And that's how we go into these types of discussions. Just wanted to bring a live example. Hand this over to Nastya just to walk through the second live example.
Thank you, David. So yeah, the second high valuable use case that we came up with Everest is legal compliance use case. So because they are globally present, they are constantly growing, constantly acquiring new businesses. They have to manage loads of legal agreements with their suppliers, warehouses, vendors, and etc. And the problem that their legal team was facing is that, firstly, there was a really costly exercise because loads of legal agreements have deadlines, or they have auto renewals, and therefore if any legal agreement expires and then automatically renews, it means that Everest just has to pay certain fines, or is getting some hidden costs, which obviously increases the operational cost of the whole organization. Also, there are so many legal contracts that it was a very time-consuming exercise for all the compliance officers to find any details about any legal contract or draft a new one. And then with so many different markets, there was no easy process to find and to store these legal contracts in the structured way. So as we've dived into these problems, we found a couple of use cases for the legal compliance agents of how they could be helping the compliance team achieving more with less resources. Not going to be going through every single business process, but basically the architecture of the agent that we came up with. It's not just agent, it's agent and automation, and that's another example of why AI and automation always go hand in hand. So we have our automation piece at the top, where whenever a new legal agreement is signed and uploaded to a shared location, we have an AI model that analyzes this document and then extracts all the key details, so that then it's when compliance officer needs to find information about any contract, agent can just search through that key metadata. Then we have an autonomous part of this solution. So on a regular basis, agents just scrolling through all of the legal agreements and seeing if any of them are due for renewal or expiration. And then we have the agentic part of the solution, which consists of a number of agents. So we have the parent agent that is that is triggered when any contract is about to be expired, and then it orchestrates child agents to create new NDA agreements, to do comparison with organizational strategy and risk policies, and then also a negotiation expert. So when the contract is it needs to be renewed, to suggest compliance officer some ideas for renegotiation so that it's aligned with organizational policies. And then with this, we are gonna briefly move to the last stage of the demand funnel, which is change management. So, and over to you.
Thanks, Nasty. Yes, we're going to do this briefly, but that's probably one of the most important parts of the funnel, because there is no, it does make a lot of sense building tools which people will not be using or they will not be comfortable to use. So you will see that the change management is kind of sitting at the far right of the funnel, and this is when it comes to the comms and enablements. Yes, you build something, build a tool, automation, app, agent, deploy this to the production, to the organization, and then we push in the comms. We are training people like how to use it. But the adoption activities, they are actually starting from day one, and not going into the all the details. It just on a high level. It starts from the AI readiness assessment, making sure we do persona analysis, and we do assessment of the foundational AI knowledge, of how much organization is actually ready to use AI and automation tools. Then we build an awareness within the organization, answering this "what's in it for me" question, because we've seen a lot of people, they get frustrated by the assumption that they will have just to do more work to increase efficiency. No, this is not the case. So they're working on this awareness with them. Then at the very beginning of the technical feed and the development processes, we're looking into those MVP, and we are assessing how complex they are. Right, so what kind of training, video guides, step-by-step drop-in sessions will be needed to actually adopt it. We enable proficiency, like bridging the gap from basic technical knowledge to some advanced skills, especially when prompting is required or some interaction with models is required. Reinforcing success through the leadership advocates. By sharing success stories of the time saved or the higher customer impact, or probably the returning customers, like what was achieved. And one of the most important steps, we establishing the feedback loop, making sure that people can share their feedback, so then we can iterate this back to the engineering and improve the product. So that's the high level of the adoption for the agents and automations that we build in. And I think 6 months is a very good checkpoint. And in the last minute, just a very brief rapid fire of what have been achieved. So first of all, governance and planning. Completed both Copilot Studio Lite and full governance streams, environmental policies, licensing model. We've delivered quite a few POCs, and 2 ideas actually launched in the production. Once David and Asta were covering, and we have a backlog for like 12 to 18 months of demand in the factory. When it comes to the enablement, the agent build training has been embedded into the structured M365 Copilot learning path to make sure that people can go and build the agents themselves. The Citizen Developer Academy is launching level 1 and level 0 pretty much now. And we've had a hackathon, like a few hackathon ideation, not just to collect the ideas, but actually to reinforce the learning and the messaging and get people more familiar with the tools. So this is what could be achieved in 6 months in a organization of a similar profile. At this stage, I would like to thank everyone for your time, for participation. Thank you. Sadly, we don't have any time for Q&A, so we will be pretty happy to reach out back to you. Or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We are always happy to have a chat. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much, everyone.